In 2009, I lost a friend of mine to hepatitis B when I was in undergraduate program at Makerere University in Uganda. So that was my first encounter to hear about a disease called hepatitis B. Before that, I didn't know there was a disease called hepatitis B. So the most devastating part was how this gentleman was buried, because he was buried like someone who had died of Ebola. So everyone feared get close to his body, and he was not given a decent burial. So that was so intriguing for me. So I went back to the university, reflected, read about a bit of hepatitis B, and in 2012, I voluntarily went to the hospital to check and get myself vaccinated. Unfortunately, my results came when they were positive, and that's when I knew I had hepatitis B. What I did when I found out I had hepatitis B, of course, in the first instance, I had a lot of fear, because I knew how devastating the disease was because of the loss of a friend who had developed liver cancer, cirrhosis, and a swollen abdomen. So I lived in that kind of fear, but I thought living in such a scenario of fear was not so important, rather than to share my personal experience, my diagnosis with friends close to me, family, and the general public. But this came with a lot of a backlash, because each time I disclosed my status to the friends, some family members, I experienced a lot of stigma. So this prompted me to think more broadly about my individual self, but rather to establish an organization, the National Organization for People Living with Hepatitis B, whose objective at the time was basically to create awareness through sharing my own experience, and also ensuring that we carry out some advocacy messages to the Ministry of Health to appreciate the burden of hepatitis B, because there was no dedicated program to deal with hepatitis B, and a lot of people were suffering. I witnessed firsthand domestic violence of couples breaking families because of hepatitis B infection. There was no awareness in terms of the clear mode of transmission, which was something I thought, using my personal experience and the organization that I started, would change the narrative. The stigma associated with hepatitis B is one of the major challenges faced by hepatitis B patients and communities. The reason the stigma exists is, first of all, if you are diagnosed with hepatitis B, people immediately associate it with either witchcraft. Others who tend to know associate it with cancer, and therefore people fear to disclose their status, because if you are diagnosed with, say, cancer in my country, it's like a death sentence, because there are no dedicated infrastructure that can actually do like a liver transplant, and therefore people fear to come out openly. But in some instances, say for young people who are planning to get married, if one tends to know that one of the partners is positive, that can end the relationship. And therefore people prefer not coming out to talk about the hepatitis B status. And also in instances, we have seen people lose their jobs because they have hepatitis B. We have seen most of the young people trying to leave the country for greener pastures in the Arab countries. And when they have hepatitis B, they are denied visas, even when they have sold most of their properties to go to some of these countries. So these are some of the challenges, but all this spans because the levels of awareness are very limited, and that's why I am using my personal experience to share my journey, so that it speaks to that person who is actually staying in self-denial, and helping them to come out boldly to demand for services. Because if you know you have the problem and you don't come out, then no one will actually help you or there are no services that are going to be dedicated to the program.